Three journalists and over a dozen land defenders have been arrested over the last several days at a pipeline blockade on indigenous land in North-West B.C. Now, in a bit here, I will get to more on this pipeline, including the money behind it that may give you an indication as to why this is happening. But first here, more on these two journalists that are still behind bars. This from the Canadian Association of Journalists, saying here they demand the RCMP immediately release award-winning photojournalist Amber Bracken and documentarian Michael Toledano from police custody with their belongings. The two were illegally arrested by the RCMP officers late yesterday afternoon while reporting on the construction of a contentious natural gas pipeline in Wet'suwet'en territory in northern British Columbia. And I believe 40 other groups have signed on to this call to release these journalists, including the Committee to Protect Journalists here that also called to release these two journalists. Now, a little more on why this is illegal. So from the Narwhal here, the arrests of Bracken and Toledano come in the same year a coalition of media organizations, including the Narwhal, launched and won a BC Supreme Court case against the RCMP after police restricted journalists' access to the Fairy Creek blockades. Quote, every time this happens, the RCMP seems to want to hide behind a curtain and execute their orders in complete darkness, Jolly said. Maybe that's okay in a dictatorship or in a totalitarian country, but it's not acceptable here in Canada. Transparency matters. So if it wasn't already obvious that you can't simply arrest journalists that are covering this kind of thing, this makes it even more obvious. But more here from The Guardian on this pipeline and their coverage of it up to this point. So Bracken and Toledano have each spent months documenting tensions over the 670-kilometer coastal GasLink pipeline that would transport natural gas from the northeastern part of the province to a facility in Kitimat. While a number of communities have approved the project along the pipeline's proposed route, hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en people have refused to give consent for the project, which passes through their traditional territory. The Wet'suwet'en has never signed a formal treaty with the provincial government and have not relinquished their land. So this is well documented, yet still the RCMP going in there, being told to go in there and arrest these land defenders that are simply there defending their own land. Now, this is a look at the pipeline, the enormity of it. Obviously, this is a zoomed-in picture near around northern BC, but I believe the arrests happened around Kitimat. But here you have, this ongoing desire for continued new fossil fuel infrastructure when we're in the middle of a climate crisis. BC, I just covered last week, BC had a major climate event with the floods and the mudslides, and people died, people missing. I mean, lives destroyed, yet still, in that same province, there is new investments into fossil fuel infrastructure. Now, more here on this pipeline. So a major BC pipeline, or this major pipeline, will cross about 625 streams, creeks, rivers, and lakes, many of them fish-bearing, during construction of one of the largest private sector projects in Canadian history, according to the company building it. The $6.6 billion pipeline is designed to carry natural gas obtained by hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, in northeastern BC to a $40 billion LNG terminal on the province's north coast for export to Asia. Now, so I've covered, I believe it was 2 years ago, I covered another interaction or more arrests of land defenders by the RCMP on, I believe, the same pipeline. But this has gone back a decade. So more here from the Narwhal. Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and their supporters have voiced their opposition to any pipeline construction of the territory for over 10 years. In December of 2019, a court issued an injunction against blockaders, giving RCMP officers authorization to make dozens of arrests last year, when land defenders blockaded the road and prevented work by the pipeline company and contractors. During both the 2020 police action and current enforcement, RCMP set up exclusion zones preventing the media from accessing and documenting the events. I mean, what else do you need to know? When they're setting up these exclusion zones where the media can't even cover what is going on, that just tells you that what they are doing, or what they should not be doing what they are doing, because they don't want to document it. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, why not let the media in? But they're blocking the media out for a very particular reason. Now, more here on the money behind this pipeline. So this was actually a great segment here on Democracy Now! I'll link to below the video. on this entire event. Actually, this is from Friday, so there's been some updates since then, but still, it's a good overview of what is going on. But here they had on Molly Wickham, chief and matriarch of the Gidimintang clan, which is a part of the Wet'suwet'en people. So she explains here the money that is behind this pipeline.
The corporation, the owners are the TC Energy, KKR, which is a private equity investment firm, and AIMCO, which is investment firm as well from Alberta, which actually is caught up with Alberta RCMP pension funds. And so TC Energy owns the least amount, and there's also the major investors of the major 5 Canadian banks that are, and RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, is the one funding most of the construction for this project. And so there's a lot of Canadian pension funds that are invested in these private equity firms that own this company. And around the world, there's huge investment into this company that people aren't even aware that it's their pension funds that are paying for this destruction of our territory.
Yeah, so as Molly Wickham there broke down the money behind this pipeline, including RCMP pensions. Now, to be fair, I guess, I think these raids would be going on anyways, even if they weren't invested in the pipeline. But clearly here, it just shows you how much worse this conflict is when the RCMP has a financial reason to be interested to go through with these arrests and continue this pipeline. Now, last thing here. So the BC government is NDP. It's an NDP government. Now, I'm not in British Columbia. I'm not all that aware of the day-to-day aspect of what the BC NDP are doing, but clearly here, they're allowing this pipeline to continue. They're not intervening in what is happening with the RCMP and arresting these journalists or these land defenders. It's incredible that you have here. It's been a consistent issue when the NDP have been able to gain power in rare cases in various provinces, be it Ontario, Alberta, BC. It's just been a complete disappointment. And the BC NDP appear to be just another one of those massive disappointments. And I've only seen one NDP politician call this out. And that's, maybe there's more, but I've only seen this one. So this is Matthew Green on Twitter saying here, I've been pretty clear in the past, but if it bears repeating, all police brutalization, criminalization, and intervention in nation-to-nation land claims are reprehensible, including when committed by Premier Horgan or other provincial NDP. So this is the only NDP lawmaker I've seen actually directly call out Premier Horgan and the NDP in BC, but it's words. I mean, I know, Matthew Green doesn't run the party. He can only do so much. He's also in Ontario. He's not in BC. But in terms of what we should be seeing the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, stand with people, stand with Indigenous people, stand with climate science, and against these brutal actions by the RCMP. But, with the internal politics of it all, they're just afraid of making that clear division between themselves and a provincial NDP government. But, if you hope to build a solid support base to build on, you have to be willing to stand with climate science and with Indigenous leaders. It's that simple. But again and again, we've just seen them cave to the existing power structures that are already in place that they are not willing to really challenge when it comes down to it. And it's incredibly disappointing.